Well, emergency pirate pod, and unfortunately, once again, we are not live in person, and unfortunately, Ryan Pindry not with us. I was excited to have Ryan on today. We had done quite a bit of preparation to talk about what we're going to talk about today, but the unfortunate reality is Ryan is dealing with some things and not able to do the pirate pod. There's a chance that Ryan is able to, and I will never post this version that I'm about to record, but this is the time that works the best for me and my schedule, so I'm going to record solo pirate pod because that is the way we are leaning at the moment. Obviously, big elephant in the room to talk about, with my team and in our game, what is going on now, a week and a half ago. Biggest subject matter, and obviously the off week, kind of prolonging things and making it probably a subject matter longer than, at least my team would agree, longer than it needed to be. But that's life. And I'm just on this. I'm going to share, what I believe to be my version of the truth. I'm not really going to speak too ill-willed towards any individuals. I'll give credit to the people who I believe credit is due to. I just wanted to air out our side of the truth. We have not spoken publicly about this as a team. We are not going to speak publicly about this as a team. After this podcast is recorded, we are not going to speak on this. We are moving on. We have a big game on the schedule this week. A kickball league that's coming to a conclusion in playoffs that, we care deeply about. So, we are shifting our focus back to kickball, but just wanted to kind of air out our side. And I know I've gotten a lot of messages. And as somebody that, works in media, I'm a firm believer in transparency and things being, aired out is not necessarily the right term, but, things being said publicly because, I get some things have to be handled privately and are private matters, but I don't consider this to be a private matter. It was obviously aired out pretty heavily. A lot of people have, shared their version of events. A lot of people have spread plenty of rumors, this, that, and the other. And obviously a ton of discourse, threads locked on Facebook and this, that, and the other. And obviously the KVKL is allowed to police that Facebook group however they want. But I'm a firm believer in discussion and conversation. And so I'm going to share our side and then we're going to move on. So, I have to start, with the biggest part. Because, I've gotten some messages. I've seen people, I've had people on my team saying people are messaging about it. So I just got to, come forward and say my part. I was suspended by the KVKL last week. I guess no, it would be this week. And they made their decision based off, the statements and stuff provided to them, eyewitness accounts per them, their opinion on events, stuff like that and the other. And I filed a lawsuit in response to it against the KVKL. That lawsuit has since been dropped and dismissed. I have since been unsuspended by the KVKL board. I will say I told the KVKL when I was told rumors by multiple people, none of which board members, which kind of implies that, board members are speaking, about situations with people that they think are their friends or people that they think wouldn't tell me or wouldn't tell other people who will tell me. I got wind of the fact they were talking about suspending me and suspending me, for lack of a better term, pretty severely, was what I was told originally. It wasn't what ended up happening, which was what they ended up telling me was I was going to be suspended one game. What I had been told is I was going to be suspended for the rest of the season, if not next season as well. I have no idea. I have no ability to confirm that, but that is what I was told. And so when I was told that, I spoke with my lawyer. Because my understanding and my interpretation of the situation is this. And my team's interpretation of the situation is this. The Red Legs game, obviously very, very long. Some pretty heated, heated isn't even the right word, but some very in-depth, deep, long, time-consuming discussions over some rules stuff. That ends up, resulting in us forfeiting. And so I will dive into the game in a little bit, but just kind of sharing our side is I don't believe anyone on my team did anything wrong to deserve punishment, up to and including myself. I don't think anyone on the other team did anything wrong and up to and deserving punishment. I think there is one person who deserves punishment, and I believe that person was not punished. And I'm not going to air out that person's dirty laundry. That person knows what they did, and if they want to take accountability for their actions, they can do so. But there was one person involved in that entire game that made an egregious error that I believe could have been, completely prevented if they made decisions on their own to not be consuming alcohol. So that is my take on that. And so my take is, and I told the board when I heard I was being suspended, I said, hey, I contacted my lawyer, paid him for 2 hours of work to review the film, basically, that we have of the unedited film of our game. For those that are curious and wondering, my plan is to upload that unedited film to Marcus's YouTube to allow people to, scan through it and get their version of events. But I was like, we do not believe we violated any rules. We do not believe we've done anything. Yes, like, could we have given up the case earlier on some things? Yes, like this, that, the other. But like what I was believed to have been told from, uncovering and, some people oversharing with people again that like, just being honest, like some people I think have faith in some wrong people. And they think that they can talk shit on me and talk shit on my team to people who they think won't tell us back. And so, I was informed kind of what the board thinks we had done and what had happened in that game. And like, quite frankly, it was just not the truth. Yes, like, did I like try to fight for Scott to be able to stay in the game after I subbed him out because he was not performing well? Yes. And like, I would sub him out in that situation again, and he knows it. Like, he made some egregious mistakes that, like, quite frankly, like, were really the only reason that game ever ended up being close. Like, we were pouring it on them. We ended up pouring it on him again the next inning. Like, we were doing everything correctly. And then the result is, like, obviously the way everything played out hurt the team and hurt our kicking lineup. Our kicking lineup is put together a certain way for a reason. And, allowed Redlegs, who are a good team, to fight back in the game and do everything they could to try and win the game. And so, I'm not going to, like, I don't think we did anything wrong there. And, like, there was a lot of accusations or beliefs that, like, we had non-captains arguing with the refs and, like, we were berating the refs and, like, this, that, the other. And, like, my take is, like, I don't believe that happened at all. And we pulled out the stopwatches, we pulled out the timers, and the reality is, like, Redlegs had 5 players who were not a captain talk to a referee about a rules discussion in the middle of these 3 individual segments. We only had 2 that were non-captains. Nick, being the captain of Redlegs, was the only captain that spoke with the refs. Sean and Jess were who we elected as captains for the game. Ironically, because they sent out messages to their team talking shit on us before the game, saying we're horrible human beings, this, that, the other. And one of their teammates told us. And we knew they were going to try and get us in trouble, and we knew they were going to try and argue, like, say that we're the worst people possible. So me and Trey stepped down from our posts and said, hey, Jess and Sean, you're going to handle everything, and then say the other. Did it play out that way? No. And I'm willing to admit, yes, I did engage in discussions with the refs because I believe their interpretation of the rule was incorrect. Was I also engaged by the refs to have multiple conversations after I brought up my original point? Also, yes. And so my point is like, sure, I get how you could, find that annoying as a spectator, as a player. I mean, hell, we didn't enjoy standing around either. But I really do believe that, like, the truth was not being told. And, like, and that's a bigger issue for me of the entire situation because, like, and I said it in my email to the board when I told them, hey, I've talked about this with my lawyer. I'm prepared to file a temporary restraining order to get me eligible, until we've, like, fought this out because, like, I just don't think we broke any rules. And at least not rules that the other team didn't. So it's like, if we're going to serve out suspensions, like, hell, half the people in that game have to be suspended, which, again, I don't think to be fair and or to be right at all. And I do think the reality is the board, as a whole majority, I would say, not fans of me. And that's perfectly fine. I've never been one to, conform to, like, authority just to appease them. It's not the way I work. It's not the way I operate. And I don't think really anyone should operate that way. But, it is what it is. But my take is, like, and I told them, I was like, we just want a civil and just punishment. And, like, in my opinion, as I've said already 3 times on this podcast, is that would have been nobody being punished or just the scorebook being punished. But my take was, from what I was hearing, was that was not going to happen at all. And so I asked my lawyer, I said, like, do I have a case here? Like, I don't think I should be suspended. I care about kickball a lot, dude. I spent my 4th of July weekend playing kickball in Washington, D.C. in 100 degrees, humid as hell. They fucking had to cancel the tournament because it was too hot and people were passing out. Like, I love kickball. I care about kickball a lot. I have a lot invested in this team. I have a lot invested in kickball emotionally, physically, and financially. And I'm not going to let somebody walk all over me because it's the popular thing to do or because they don't like me for one reason or another. And so that's kind of why, like, that's the real sum all of, like, why I took the extra steps is because for me, Win or lose, who knows how things would have played out and could have played out. I believe, obviously, that I had a very solid case. I do believe that the KVKL did make a very biased board decision. I don't fault them at all. I'm not going to hold this against them. I am ready to move on again. But I do not think that they made that decision without bias. And I believed that was going to come to light with, their messages having to be aired out at some point that they had in discussion about me and about the situation. And so that was my take. And so I told them that. They ended up suspending like their conversations to the weekend. They had their conversations, and they walked away from that. To my understanding, with like handing out an IFU or two to my team, and then suspending me for saying I was going to use a lawyer. That is illegal. Like, you can't do that in the United States of America. I have the right to one, as we all know. And so that ended up making this kind of like, in my opinion, about as easy, open and shut as it gets. Again, I'm not going to dive into the details of the lawsuit stuff. It's been dropped. I'm glad both parties are ready to move on, and we are going to move on. Am I disappointed? Like, obviously, I had to spend a lot. Like, being transparent, I had to spend like more than $5,000 to do this. And the unfortunate reality is that like I didn't plan on that a month ago, 2 months ago, and I have things I wanted to do, vacations I wanted to take. I wanted to give out awards, Pirate Pod awards with like pretty cool trophies. I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to afford to do that. Like I past 2 years, at least to my understanding, at least like what I was being told by the board member I was communicating with at the time, is like I've given the two biggest like face value gifts, around $2,000 and like $1,000 this past season. And I've also bought things for way over their face value at the auctions as well. And so I'm probably admittedly like not going to be able to do any of that anymore. And it sucks. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, you're an idiot for taking kickball this seriously, this or the other. That is your decision if you want to hold that opinion. I couldn't truly care less. But yeah, it's disappointing that it got to this point. And like, I think the unfortunate reality was like their insinuation was that like I was trying to like blackmail's not the right word. I was like trying to use the threat to get them to like back down and like make a different decision than they were going to make. And like, sure, I guess in theory you could say that, but it's like, I just wanted them to acquire the facts. And I don't think they did. And I don't think they care. And like, that was my biggest gripe. Yesterday was kind of a day that a lot of things started to come to a head, and like, decisions were having to be made by everybody. And yesterday sucked. Like, I'm going to be transparent. It sucked for me. I'm sure like every single board member would say it sucked for them. It wasn't fun. Like, I didn't want to do that. Like, I'm telling like, I didn't want to do that. I promise you I did not want to do that. And it sucked. It sucked a lot. And yeah, it's just, I think the reality is that like, I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. And again, they would say that they weren't being biased. That's the other than that is their opinion. That is perfectly fine. I will not fight them on that. But I disagree. And I had to stand on business for my team, as I've said, and ironically, the only other time, I've gotten in trouble this year was like a situation that I would deem as like standing up for my team and my teammates. Cause it's like, I ask my teammates to like die on the field. And like, I make the jokes, in our group, like, the heat warning game was a good example of like, everybody was talking like, oh, take breaks and do this or the other. And I messaged our team. I was like, if you aren't willing to die, like, let me know. We'll replace you right now. Like, we have to do everything we can. We got to dive for the ball. We got to slide to get in safe. Like, we have to do everything. And I ask a lot of my teammates, and they deliver every single week, and they work their fucking asses off. And if there's a mistake they're making, they're working on it. They're reviewing the film, getting better at the things they're struggling with, and like figuring out the things they're good at. And so for me, it's like, I wasn't going to let them suspend me in what I would deem to be like probably the most important game on our schedule the rest of the year before the playoffs, because of something that I believe that nobody on our team did anything wrong. And I will stand by that. And I get that they were told things, and I get that a majority of them weren't there. I don't think any of them really watched the game besides obviously the two that were included in the game. Obviously Jeff Bovey was called over on multiple occasions to help out with some things. But obviously he wasn't really spectating the game until the very end. And I do believe like by the end of the game, I do believe there was a board member or two that had like made it over into the crowd. But yeah, it just, I just didn't agree with like the version of events. And I think like their suspension email to me kind of really, for me, it was the like do I want to go, when I was debating if I wanted to go forward with this after receiving the suspension, because like I had already, like I said, I had prepared. We were prepared like last Thursday to respond whenever I was going to get suspended. And then I received the suspension, and I have to make the decision, like, do I want to go forward with this? And like my take was is that what they said happened, which is like was just filled with things that quite frankly like didn't happen. And I was like, you know what, like I have to stand up for myself. I have to stand up for the team. I have to make sure that like people know, just because you don't like us and you don't like me, or you have your preconceived notions about me or Jess or Trey or Sean or whoever, like you don't just get to like push for us to get in trouble and try and get us in trouble for things that didn't happen. We record our games for a reason. We save all of our film. We don't, Marcus obviously clips out the stuff that matters and posts it. And like, for the most part, he deletes everything else, but like we save all of our film. There's a lot to learn from the stuff that doesn't happen in play. And even more so, it's like he does a great job of saving people from getting in trouble on a regular basis, like on a regular basis. And so it was like, the unfortunate reality is like we're gonna have to now hold on to this film and use it to get me out of trouble. And I think that was where the next layer of problems came about, was like the board's interpretation of what I was saying, which I was refusing to give over the film, was that like I was trying to use it as leverage. Again, my honest take on the whole situation is that like through their own lens, to a fault or not, they were choosing to look at everything I did as like cynical and aggressive, and like as somebody who was like trying to manipulate the situation. That is in no capacity the truth. The reality is that I knew that film would prove me as innocent. In terms of like not breaking any code of conduct rules or anything like that, and prove my team is like pretty overall innocent. Because again, when this gets released, we did not do anything worse than the other team, and they spent way more time surrounding refs and this, that, the other than we did, and having non-captains speak to refs. And so I really, really, really disagreed with what the summation and what everybody was saying about what happened in that game. And the way even things came about, because like, with all due respect, like, Simon, not even like in terms of physical stature, a small person. He's not. He's very tall. And also the reality too is like obviously like very strong-minded and this, that, the other. And it's like to act like I was out there like getting one over, verbally abusing on Simon is like just funny to me. And I'm sure, in some capacities funny to him, even though I'm sure he was very annoyed by having to ref that game. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like the summation of everything and the way they came about the facts. I didn't like the way that they like really kind of had no desire to come about the facts. Like I said, I was willing to sit down with a board member and go through the film together, as long as punishment would be properly served out for lying. Because I really think that, just because you don't like us doesn't mean you get to lie about us. And we play our games and the crowd's heckling us. The crowd's always cheering against us. We're fine with that. We embrace that. We accept that. And we live with that because we know we signed up for that. Just being the people we are, being the way we are, being competitive, talking shit and this, that, the other. But you guys, and I'm going to say you guys, as a very generalized statement. Obviously, there are people who are on our side or people who don't, cross any lines or anything like that. But it's like, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, in terms of like, oh, you have the free ability to like verbally abuse us during games, which is what has happened. Like that game of the week, like we were verbally abused, and like I don't care. Like I mean, it's people saying mean things about somebody at kickball is like never gonna bother me. I couldn't imagine letting that bother me. But it's like you don't get to do all that and then be like, oh, like oh yeah, someone yelled at him from the crowd and they told him to shut up, and it's like you don't get to have both sides there. And so I don't know. I really didn't like the way things came about. And so that is kind of like the end all of how the situation went down. Again, like the details aren't going to come out there. I'm sure some board member will tell their friend or tell some people, what their point of view is. But I think all of us involved are ready to move on, and I'm excited to move on. And I'm glad that the board, and as far as I'm concerned, ended up coming around, making the correct decision. Of not suspending me, as I did not do anything that broke KVKL code of conduct rules. I did not break like any really in-game rules. And so, yeah, I'm happy the board was able to come about that. I think honestly, I think it's like a massive step forward for the board that they were able to come around to that, because I don't think, at least like from the rumors I've heard from people that have like messaged me about what they're hearing from people, is that like, I don't think that's what was going to happen originally. I do think there are some people who, at least for a short term, we're letting their personal grudges and disdain for me, disguise their view of like what this was going to do. Because again, like I might have lost, but like both parties were going to be out 5 to 10 grand regardless. And that would have sucked for everybody involved. And that's not what this league is about. And that was highlighted, in the message unsuspending me. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that the board did that. I'm hopeful. And as I will actually say, I meant to actually call this out by now, but I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the statements that were made, by Sean or by Jeff, this past week. But I do very much agree with the message. I don't even remember I don't know if they posted even who posted it, but they had like a message just talking like, hey, like, let's take a step back and let's like, think about how we can be better and this, there. And I actually like completely agree. And I actually addressed that in my follow-up email to the board when I said I had sought legal counsel, was that like, I agree, like our team could have like, not argued the rules and like help speed that game. We aren't like against the idea that like, sure, like we played a part in that game taking so long and this, that, the other. But like, I probably would do most of that again because again, like as I'll explain here in a bit, like I don't think all of us, all that blame does not lie with us. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I really do think, and I think it's good for the board. I think it's good for the league. I think it's good for everybody in between to just take a step back and like just realize that like it's not always all that serious. You don't always have to assume the worst in people. We are all human beings, and we all really like playing kickball. And I'm against the idea of like, trying to prevent people and going out of your way to prevent people from being able to play because you don't like them or you don't like that they talked, shit to you during the game or anything like that, or that you lost the game and stuff like that. Like, I'm just kind of against the entire premise of all that. And so I thought that was a really, really, really well thought out message. Again, I don't remember who posted it, but by whoever posted that. So yeah, let's move on to the game. I'm going to take a drink of water. And for Brant and everybody else who very much enjoys my hydration ASMR, I'm going to do that on the mic. And then I'm going to dive into my thoughts on everything that transpired in the game. That's some good water. And speaking of water, actually, let's actually talk about some real shit. Casey's. They have like alkaline water, 2 for $3 deal. And it's a liter. That's a good ass deal. Mind you, like, water, the fact we have to pay so much for water is diabolical, but all things considered, like 2 for $3, 2 liters for $3, alkaline water, great deal. Love Casey's. All right. So anyways, my thoughts on the game. I'm not going to like spend too much time like transpiring my thoughts on like the actual rule here because, I'm willing to accept that like, sure, in theory, like, their take on it could be right. I don't think it's right. I think the reality is that the rule does not say anything about healthy players being subbed out mid-inning. It simply says everybody must play 1 full inning and kick 1 time on defense, blah, blah. And injured players, if you're subbed out or whatever, you're done for the day. There's the whole, like, we, defer to MLB if things aren't, in the rules. But it's like, my take is, and this is actually 100% correct take, that the rules, KVKL rules, state nothing about our fluidity in lineups. Like nothing about the fact that like you can play defense 1 inning and then like sit out and come play the next inning. It doesn't say you can do that at all. So you can't use a blanket statement of like, oh, we defer to MLB because in reality in baseball, you get subbed out at all, you cannot return to the game. And so my take is like, and before we did this, I double checked with Sean to get his take on it and he agreed. And so I was like, okay, we're going to get Scott out. Like, I'm not going to air out Scott. Scott's done a fantastic job for this team this season. He's helped us win games. He has shown up to every single game. He's played his ass off. He's probably like the second or third like hardest working fucking player on the team. Like, I love the shit out of Scott. But he got thrown into a bad spot because he don't play first base. I am the first baseman for this team. I got hurt the inning before, and my knee's still kind of hurt. I ain't gonna lie, my knee's still kind of hurt. And I was noticing when I ran to second base, it's like my fucking knee hurts. Like, I'm like, experiencing some like knee pain. And like, again, I felt very confident. One in our team and Scott, but just like in general, we were going to win the game. And so I was like, hey, like I'm going to sit this inning out. And then everyone's like, are you hurt? Like, what's going on? And it's like, yeah, just like let Scott play first. Like my knee kind of hurts. And so I go to sit down on the bench and like Corinne can testify. Like I like kind of like yelped in pain. Like when I sat down, like my knee hurt really, really bad. It ended up like, I mean, it kind of swelled up like a little bit, but it ended up being more of like a temporary, Pain, I don't know, like by the sixth inning or so, like I was fine. But yeah, it was I would never sub myself out. Like, and I will say there was accusations from people that like we had planned to do this all along and this, that, the other, and like that is just far from the truth. I don't necessarily think that was ever like brought to the board, but like I had somebody like literally message me and accuse me of like we were always planning to do that and sub Scott out. And like that's not true. Scott's like the third best kicker on our team and like plays a very, very, very important part in our lineup and is a lot of the reason why that game ended up being close because he had to be scratched. But yeah, it's like, Scott made a couple crucial mistakes that led to them scoring runs. And I was like, well, and then we like kind of like moved him out of first base for a little bit and then kind of came to a spot where he needed to go back. And so I was like, hey, like, my knee's feeling good enough now. Like, I'll come back out and play. So we're all right, good, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the inning ends. We get a double play, like the next play or two plays later. And then the inning ends. And then two non-captains of Redlegs go to the refs and say, Scott can't play anymore. Bryson subbed him out in the middle of the inning. I don't know if the refs didn't notice. Like, in theory, obviously, Walker was, I believe, who was reffing first base from Love Garden, was, like, reffing first base at the time. That obviously happened right in front of his face. So, like, in theory, he saw it in real time, whatever, but didn't say anything. But then, like, and you'll be able to see this in the film whenever it's posted, but, like, Simon, and I believe it was Becca at the time, were working the scorebook. They're talking with the two Redlegs players that are, again, not captains, that were, raising this concern to the refs. And I said, Sean is our third base coach. And so Sean's like walking around, to go over to third base, and he sees the discussion. So he like starts to like kind of pull up to see what's going on. And I'm like in the dugout talking, blah, blah. And people are like, oh, you good? Your knee fine, blah, blah. And we're like, yep, I'm good. I see them having the discussion. So I jog over and I'm like, what's going on? I like go up, put my arm around Simon. I say, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, you got to scratch Scott because you pulled him out of the game. And I was like, well, the rules don't say you can't do that. And then everyone's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. And I was like, well, show me the rule that says you can't do that. And so then like the board or the refs, start looking through the rule book. And there was like a little like side conversation between me and Simon about, oh, you can't do that. Like you think you know everything. You can't do that. And I was like, well, like the rules don't say you can't do that. And there's like a funny moment. They're still sitting there reading up the rules. And I like saying to the camera, nobody here knows the rules more than me. I've read that thing up, down, sideways. I have an insane memory. I know what the rules say. And so what happens eventually too is like more people start coming over from Redlegs. Shane starts making a testament that it happened to him last year with like, I don't know the situation, but he's like, I got subbed out and they made me get scratched, blah, blah. And my take was like, me and Trey argued about it. It's like, well, just because it happened to you, like, doesn't mean it was right. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that doesn't make it right. And we've now ended up in like a second situation where like the ruling is like KVKL precedent says it's this, which is like kind of annoying, but it is what it is. But basically they're like, oh, we can't find it. Like, we can't find anything in the rules. Like, we, whatever. But like, our understanding is that you can't do that. So we're going to scratch Scott. And my take is, again, if someone's going to stand up for my team, it's like, you're now telling me in the third inning of the game that like one of my players is not going to be able to play anymore. And if true, like that's my fault. And so I'm going to like stick up and like for that player in that moment. If you're going to tell me something that's not in the rule book, is like going to force one of my players to not be able to play. Because like obviously Scott showed up and did his fucking part and tried his ass off, worked his ass off. And then now obviously like with the context, he's like kind of like publicly embarrassed. Obviously he did get pulled out of the game for performance and like this, that, the other. And so, I'm like, hey, can I get a board member? And I knew Jeff Bovey was playing like kind of caddy corner to us. And I was like, can I get a board member, to kind of come rule on this? Because it's like, my take is it's not in the rule book. And if you're telling me like one of my players can't play anymore the rest of the game, like I need some official word on that. Because I disagree. And they're like, yep, perfect. So I go over to Jeff's field. I begged Jeff to come over. He did not want to come over. And I understand that. And he was reffing the other game. I understand that. But it's like, the KVKL has publicly posted that like they have the schedule set up the way they have it. And they have the board members spread out the way they have them. So that they're there for reference. And like, that was highlighted in that long post the KVKL made. Like, and so he comes over, they have discussions. And then I'm like, hey, man, don't say you can't do that. And like, Jeff was like pretty prompt that like his interpretation or understanding was that you can't do it. But then I was like, dude, the rules don't say you can't. And so, that like more discussion starts to happen. And like, to defend my team and defend all the actions, I think there's like a very unique moment in all of this that like kind of speaks volumes to a lot of things. And like the first base ref comes over and is like talking to me and Jess, and he is like telling us like, oh, like you guys can't do this, you're trying to pull one out, and like he starts like getting like very verbally aggressive, and this is all happening right next to the home plate, right on the camera, and he like we're like going back and forth. I was like, dude, it's not in the rules, like, well, like you're removing a player from the game permanently for something that's not in the rules, and he like gets like very verbally aggressive at Jess. And Jess and me is like, whoa, I haven't done a thing. I have not raised my voice. I am just literally standing here talking to you. And she's like, we're literally standing right in front of the camera. We can literally prove that that happened. And that person's attitude changed immediately. Once like call out and like just completely realized like, yes, you like, for lack of a term, that person has made themselves out to be an asshat for like no reason, out of like kind of nowhere, for lack of a better term. And I'm sure like, you know, the Heat might have like, you know, I've had multiple people share their take was like the Heat played a role in all this. I don't know. But like that to me was like kind of a massive testament to how this entire situation is played out, that it's like somebody who's like kind of like lost their fucking marbles for like 4 seconds on us when like we were doing absolutely nothing. And so then what it really surmised out to, and again, I disagree with this, and I told the board that in my original email, kind of highlighting my take on the game, is that there's a lettering in the rule book that says like a player removed from the defensive lineup or player removed from the lineup for any reason, you know, must be done for the day or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, and I'm too lazy to look it up right now. But my take was like, that's not talking about defense, it's talking about offense, and he was not removed from the offensive lineup. He was just replaced on defense. And their decision was that like, this is the rule, and this, and I was like, okay, I mean, it is what it is. I have to, I said I have to live with it. I mean, you guys get to make the decisions. And so, yeah, I disagree with that, and like just giving my quick short take on that is like, you look up the word lineup in the KVKL rules, and the rules 34 times. The other 33 times are all very, very clearly talking about offense. Defense is never referred to as a lineup. And so that's my take. I think the rule's vague. I think, you know, sure, can you say, oh, Bryce, you're trying to operate in a gray area? No, sure. I think the reality is like most teams aren't going to remove a player mid-inning for performance, because they probably don't want to win as bad as we do. And, you know, the situation has probably never been prominent enough for the KVKL to make it a decisive rule on the matter. That is my honest take on that, and that is going to be me moving on from that. And so the reality was, you know, I had to go over and tell Scott he was done for the day, which really sucked. I felt really bad. But, you know, he's a warrior, a fighter. You know, he wants to win. He accepted it. He's like, yep, all good. And he's like, the also reality is, like, Scott's a competitor. And, like, he knows, like, the real reality, like, the only reason this situation came about is because he didn't catch 2 balls that, like, you know, we expect and know we can. That led to, like, 3 runs for them. So, you know, he understood from that point of view, but obviously was just like disappointed with himself, and that, you know, that's what I love about the guy. And so, you know, we moved on. Like, the unfortunate reality was like immediately after, the scorebook was changed, to the person that, you know, took over the scorebook the rest of the game. I'm going to just make a solid statement. That person was not sober. People, you know, with evidence are saying that person started drinking at 11 a.m. They were out in the heat all day. And then immediately after taking over the scorebook, that person made a game-breaking and game-changing mistake, not counting Olivia's run in the following inning. Like, Liv scored, and the run was not counted. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to, like, harp on this for, like, a 7th time. But I've said this punishment needs to be severe. My understanding is that the person who did this in the Holman Jazz House game earlier this season was given an IFU. This person was not given an IFU for the situation. I'm not the board. I don't get to make their decisions, but I do find that disappointing. I do think there's probably a little bit of, you know, I do think the game environment was kind of crazy. That's the understanding I've gotten from the board, is that they've accepted that. And so maybe they're just being more lenient every way. But yeah, I don't know. It's just disappointing because like almost all of this has really kind of come about, because of this egregious error that was made. And so, yeah, that was what it was. We kind of moved on from there. You'll see, if you choose to be someone who watches the entirety of the unedited film, like nothing really happens, you know, for almost an hour of game time. I want the record to show we did not argue a single call on the field. We did not. There are, you know, a couple situations where a call, you know, went against Red Legs that they disagreed with. There's a spot where their catcher was like pointing something out to the refs and, trying to debate something with the refs. There was an out safe call where they definitely had quite a few comments. Like, we never shared a single comment on a single subjective call the entire game. Do I believe, and we're going to move on to the the next situation, which was the did Aaron score, me out at second situation. So the me out at second situation, I didn't think for a second I was out. I was like very, very confident that I was safe. And I think the film shows that I was safe. I slide into second base, this, the other, and also let the record show, like, I am actually going to, like, stand up for myself here. It's like, Riley was in my way. And it was a thrown ball from the, center fielder into the infield. And, like, the ball, like, he throws it like a soccer goalie, because my understanding is he is. And so the ball's, like, kind of spinning away from her. And so she definitely, like, has to, like, where it was going originally is not where it ends up. And it's also a very windy day. But it's like, she was in my way. And, like, there was a comment made, like, Bryce needs to learn how to slide, blah, blah. But it's like, if I would have slid in my base path, like, properly, like, we'd be talking about, like, what ACL surgery she would be getting this week. And, like, I am the world's biggest proponent against interference and running into people and, like, trying to do what you can to avoid, like, hard contact injuries. Like, I have been on this podcast a million times saying, like, you got to do your part. Reese last year, I was like, you got to do your part. And, like, there was a situation earlier in the game where, like, Brett and Shane bumped into each other that, like, I don't know. I thought it was handled well by the refs, but it's, like, not really much you can do in that situation. Like, you're going to go, like, to hit somebody, like, they're going to defend themselves. Like, throwing a hissy fit about that is your own opinion. But, it's like, I avoided her. But, like, in the avoiding of her, I'm now, like, taking a horrible angle to the base. And also, I know she's, like, I mean, the play was somewhat bang. So I was like, I knew I needed to get in there. So I just, like, dove down and, like, slid through the base. Ended up with a situation where, like, my foot was what was left on the base. And so I would say, undoubtedly, the film shows that I was safe. But both refs on the outsides called me out. I thought I was safe. My team thought I was safe. Even Simon, the head ref, thought I was safe. But it's like the two ladies on the outside had a closer view, and they both called me out. And that's perfectly fine. And so I get up. I'm like, whatever. And obviously my team's pissed at me, which is perfectly fine. They're all right to be so. Whatever. And so we move on. We play the next inning. And I want to say, just to clarify for what we'll get into what was about to happen, is that, like, there are two instances, and they are both on camera, and you'll be able to see them in the film, where I go up to the scorebook and I ask what the score is and I ask what the inning is. And both times I was unable to get an answer. And the second time when I asked, I was received one with, like, just insane amounts of attitude about the ask. And, like, almost like as a recourse of, like, you just asked this, even though I didn't get the answer, like, 2 innings before. And also, I will say, after circling back to that third inning from earlier, we asked what the score was, and we were told 6-5. And we were like, whoa. We have way more runs than that. And the unfortunate reality was like, I missed them. And, like, I'll say this, if you look at our score sheet, and mind you, I won't say, like, not all of it isn't to fault to some situational stuff, but it's like, our score sheet is a shit show. It is a shit show. And there's drawings left, right, and center, and it's like, runs were missed, and then also, too, on top of that, Liv's run was missed. And my take on that real situation before I dive into what's next is I don't like the idea of, like, now my team's going to keep our own book. We're going to have to, because that's, like, where we've been led to. Because, we're going to get punished for anything else. But it's like, I don't like the idea that, like, I have to, like, kind of, like, commandeer the book from them to figure out what mistake they've made. Like, that is kind of on you as the refs, to make sure, you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's. And I don't want to be, like, an asshole. Like, I don't want to have to be like, hey, I need to double check your work, like, after each inning. But, like, knowing where a team is in the lineup is important. Knowing what the score is in the inning and knowing where a team is in the lineup is, like, all things that very good teams do. And, like, I don't get why the perception is different when I'm asking. I don't get why the perception is different when my team is asking. I've reffed Johnny's games plenty of times. Michael's asking me what fucking inning it is and what the score is and who's up to kick, like, 400 fucking times. Like, that is what the good teams do. And so I don't like the perception that was, like, given back to me about asking. And again, to my point, and you'll see it in the film, is I asked and I did not get an answer. And then, like, the inning before, when I had asked, like Sean, I told Sean to just find out what it was because she wouldn't tell me. And like he gets it and yells it back to me, whatever. But it's like, I never got told that Aaron did not score. And so we play the next inning. And then it's like, oh, we're still playing kickball. And I'm like, hey, I go up. Again, all on film. I go up to Simon. I say, hey, Simon, did Aaron's run not count? Because my out at second base was not a force out. Therefore, if he crossed home first, that run counts. Like, was he across or was he not? Because again, like I was tagged out. I was called out via tag. I was not tagged out. I was safe. But I was called out via tag. And he said, ooh, I don't necessarily know. Let me look. And so he goes to talk to Liz. And then immediately, like Nick and somebody else on their team starts shouting, no, he didn't score. He didn't score. He didn't score. I have no way to know. I have absolutely no way to know. I was sliding fucking headfirst into the fucking base, however many fucking 90 feet or however fucking far away that fucking base is away. So I had no idea to know. Refs get together. They're having conversations. We're like, hey, obviously I'm fat and slow. Aaron's fast. Like, to me, in my mind, I was thinking he scored. If he didn't score, he didn't. Like, I'm just asking if he did. And the reason is, I didn't get the fucking score when I fucking asked. So how am I supposed to know what the fucking score was? When she read out the score, I was surprised. So I say, hey, did he not count? I'm confused why we don't have fucking 11 runs or 12 runs or whatever it was. I think it was 11 that we needed to have. And so they get together, they discuss, then obviously like the other team's not happy about it and like sharing their opinions. And I'm just like, hey, and I said, I think it was Simon, Riley, Nick, me, and Jess. We were together. And I said, hey, I'm a man of integrity, and I've told my team this multiple times, and I said this out loud then. One, why don't we just, instead of saving this discussion of people trying to remember, Marcus GoPro would take him like 5 minutes, if that, not even, probably 2 minutes, to download the film, go quickly look. It took him 2 minutes to download the film. I was like, why don't we just figure it out? Like, this is important. Obviously, like, it's a big game, very important game for both teams. Why don't we just figure it out? Like, I was like, why don't we get the truth? And like, I get the like Pandora's box that could open, but it's like, in my opinion, if both teams' leadership agreed to like, hey, let's like get this right, because getting it right is the most important thing. Why don't we just get it right? And like, just not gonna share what people said, but like there was a lot of negative feedback from the other team about doing that. And I was like, well then like, do you want to be right? Like, that to me was shocking. But again, it is what it is. Everybody handles themselves differently and has different opinions. And like what I said too was like, and I'm being completely truthful about this. Because I would and I will talk about the forfeits and their desire for wanting a forfeit. But like, I could not imagine ever wanting to win a game illegitimately. I truly could not. And so I like was being transparent. Like I said, like if I was out at second base, like if the film shows I was out at second base and Aaron didn't count, I would have emailed the board. And I said this, I will email the board Monday morning and say you need to change the result of this game. Because we did not win, they won. And that was like, again, met with like negative feedback. And like, that is the honest truth. Like I was safe, so they didn't get that message, but it's like, if the run wasn't missed by the scorebook and Aaron hadn't crossed and I was out or even like, or not completely and obviously safe, I would have 100% emailed the board and said, hey, this result is wrong. The refs, I asked the refs what was going on with the score. They came together and added a run for us that should not have been added. I want that run removed. And I want the result turned over for Redlegs. I have no idea if the board would have taken me up on that. I would like to think they would. I don't see why they wouldn't. But that's my take. And that's how we would have handled that as a team. And like, if we deserved to lose, and like, we did not play well in this game. And so we did deserve in every bit to lose. But like, the real reality is like, you really can't be upset if you're the Redlegs because they quite frankly literally removed one of our, or like didn't count one of our runs. So that game was given that extra run. And the Aaron run should have been a game-winning run. Which then leads me to like where I get upset with the forfeit situation. And, I've talked forfeits on this podcast a bajillion times. I am so out on forfeits. I think the whole forfeit situation is ridiculous. Like it just does nothing because it's like the board last year showed they're going to ignore forfeits. And so now like, just a weird situation, I think. And like, that's why I think it's real. I think it's really weird they wanted the forfeit. Malloy's film that he posted or whatever, like shows them celebrating it. And like, this or the other, despite like obviously the in-game ruling being like Sean to play, and like again we will talk about this in a second, but it's like, it just feels really weird to me, because again like it means nothing for you. You're not really going to get credit for it, and like at least from league precedent, as we've talked about, league precedent is apparently so important around here. League precedent says that like we're not going to be punished for that, and also too like in the real reality is like as long as we beat Johnny's, which obviously hopefully we do, you really that loss has no effect on us because it's like we beat Post House and Johnny's, who would be the two teams right behind us. So it's like you really couldn't put either of them ahead of us. But I don't know. Everyone has their opinions. I think what's like kind of funny about the situation is like it does kind of create like a hilarious like reality that like I think it's almost like a guarantee that they're going to be the 7th seed now. And it's almost a guarantee that we are going to be the 2 seed if we beat Johnny's, which would then mean we would play each other in the quarterfinals. Which I just think is funny. If I'm being transparent and honest, like just having like a KVKL related take, like I would rather play them than Sacred Sword or Honey Badgers or Global. So I would take that matchup if it happens, because like my take, just like kind of explaining on this for those who aren't picking up what I'm putting down, like my take on this is that they beat Global legitimately, not forfeit wise, legitimately beat them. And Global obviously has some like pretty bad losses, and mind you, they had a very impressive win over the Honey Badgers this past week, or the past game. But like the real reality is like I think Global still has to play Johnny's, and they still have to play Invictus, I think. And it's like the real reality, like I don't expect Johnny's or Global to win those games, and those are the only 2 games in my opinion that could get them to leapfrog all these other teams. And so, I don't see how Global is going to get themselves like above 8, because it's like they just got unfortunately like mollywopped by Sacred Sword, and I don't think they're going to be able to break that barrier, because they also lost to Red Legs, who like got smoked by Honey Badgers. So that's my take. We'll see. Obviously the board has their opinions, but. And, it wouldn't shock me if the board, like, tried not to put us on the same field again. But who knows? That's my take on the situation there. So, moving on to, like, the whole situation that led to a forfeit, which, like, if I'm being, like, completely transparent, this was, like, to me, the most, like, upsetting part of this entire situation. Because, like, at the end of the day, I don't care if people don't like me. I don't care if people want to be prejudiced against me. They're discriminated against me and my team, or, like, have their personal opinions and let their biases affect their minds. You can sit here and look me in the face till you're fucking blue in the face and blah, 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 that you're not being discriminatory, but you are. And it's like, the forfeit thing is like really disappointing. And like, we'll talk about what happened publicly. So like, obviously Jeff has made an apology post to Facebook. I believe Jeff like accepted like a code of conduct strike as a board member, this to the other. And like, I guess like in theory, sure, I'm appreciative of him making that step, but it's like, to me, I think I disagree with the board making that their game related decision. And I think hindsight is 20/20, and I think that most of the board probably just like will always be stuck in their ways for one opinion or another. But like, I do think, maybe not this month, maybe not next month, but I do think like 6 months from now, I think they'll be like, yeah, I think we should have stuck with what our board member decided in the game and let it play out, and accept that, hey, which the take is the board member was wrong. The board member was wrong. He did his best. He gave his take on the situation. But like, to me, it just feels really wrong that you've now basically said like, hey, like, the board's here to help out in the middle of games. And we are like the judge, jury, and executioner around here. And like, we are, the decision makers on this or the other, but like, also like we could be wrong. And like you could get fucked over, and I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I don't like that. That's the way their decision was made. My take is that like I don't, obviously Jeff doesn't have the full context, and I have no context of what their conversations were like. But like the real truth is that like we argued Sean couldn't play, and that is the only reason that discussion went on for so long, is because we told Simon that Sean couldn't play. And the problem was, so Marcus got hurt at the bottom of the 9th inning. And the problem was Marcus and Sean split kick. Sean was wearing slides in the first inning. Sean, or like sandals or some sort. He was not planning to play. He knew he wasn't going to play. So did Corinne. She was wearing the same thing. They knew they weren't going to play. But Sean asked me, he's like, do you think I'll play or what? I was like, well, we'll see how the game goes. And then like we start kind of smoking them. So Sean like kind of like, oh, well, shit, I might get to play today. And like suits up to play. And it's one of those things where like I write him in there and I'm going to scratch him. I knew that before the game. And then obviously Marcus gets hurt. But it's like Sean is in there in the, I think he was in the 6th spot. No, 7th spot. In the 7th spot. Right after Dakota. And so he's in the 7th spot. And it's like, to me, I don't get it. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me how all this went down. Sean is in the 7th spot, but he has not played defense and has not kicked. But he is on our lineup now with Marcus gone, and he is the guy who's going to be up to kick. And I say, hey, we have to do something about this. And so I say, hey, we have to do something. Like, obviously, I am the person who did the lineup. I will always be the person who did the lineup. And again, I admit fault in the regards of, like, I'm talking to the rest because I had stepped down as captain, game day captain that day, which the board has now clarified you can no longer do, which is perfectly fine. But it's like, I was like, hey, we got to fix this lineup. And we explained it to Simon. Simon's like, no, it doesn't matter if he doesn't come up to kick. And I was like, no, I think it does. And like, we kind of have this, like, and you'll see it on the film. We have this like back and forth for like a couple minutes. And I'm like, dude, I think it does. Like, they start to like look it up in the rules. And obviously it is like a really weird situation because it's like the only reason he's playing is because the person he's supposed to got hurt. And he was already on the lineup, so it's not like you're adding him to the bottom situation. And like, my take is that like we wanted to rectify it. We said we were fine with playing with 9, but I was like, I don't want to play with 9 if I don't have to. And it's like we also, and we had this side discussion as they were discussing, like we could have found a way for him to kick, and we talked through the alternatives. It's like, one, like, do we just 0-0 it and then go play an extra inning? It's like, well, they get back to the top of their lineup. That could be dangerous. Obviously Nick is really good at getting on base. I think he was like 4 for 5 or something like that against us. Like, Colton's like pretty decent as well. Like the top of their lineup is able to manufacture runs. So it's like, do we want to play that game with him? Then we kind of said, okay, well, hey, we can do what we need to do to get Aaron to third base. And then we can scratch whoever's in the way. Because we had 2 spots open for us to keep a legal lineup for males. And so it's like, we could have scratched whoever was in the way guys-wise, which would have been me and Dakota. And then had Jess up. And it's like, if Jess is up with no outs, which was what the situation would have been, we could have Trey at first and Aaron at third. And it's like she could have bunted, Trey could have ran to second, Aaron stays at 3, Jess walks up the field, takes the out, and then it's like, then we could have had Sean walk it off. And so we talked about the scenarios. We were planning for whatever answer they gave us, and they, with a conversation with Jeff, came to the decision that Sean did not need to kick because obviously he's coming on for an injured player or whatever, blah, blah. And I don't understand how we got to the point of what's happened, which is that like they scratched Sean out of the spot with Marcus and moved him to the bottom of the lineup, which was like not our decision. We had no influence on that. We did not have any conversations about that. I did not have any role in that. And that is like, to me, where I just like, I don't get how we can be punished for that. Because it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make like any sense at all. And like, they made it, like, how are you going to tell me that I have to like make a decision if I disagree with the refs to like supersede them? And it just, that's an insane precedent. 2, just like a insane concept, especially for a rec kick. It's like, imagine this, like, I disagree with the refs that there's 3 outs. My team like walks off the field on defense, and when there's really only, they're like, no, there's only 2 outs. Like, we walk off the field like, nope, there's 3 outs. We disagree. Like, we have it counted as 3 outs. And it's like, I don't like it. They moved into the bottom, which is their own massive area. It's like, what were we supposed to do then? Like, we would have been punished for that because you moved someone who's in the lineup further down the lineup. And it's like, I disagree. And I get the board's not going to change their mind, and we're not going to ask them to. That they are stuck in their ways or whatever. But like, if they want proof that they don't like us, I think they should look at that situation. Because the way we were punished for something we had absolutely no role in, in a way. Like we flagged, like, dude, he's got to kick. Like that's what the rules state, and they came out and said no. It's like I just think the board should have stuck with Jeff's decision, and then punished Jeff, because honestly, my take is like they didn't punish Jeff, or didn't stick with his decision, and then they still punished him, and that to me just doesn't make sense. I do want to talk about, obviously he made the whole like no autographs thing. I want the record to show. We all take that as a joke. We all know that was a joke. Obviously I made the video like kind of making fun of him afterwards. Which like to me that's the KVKL, the beauty of it all. I think KVKL is at its best when people are having fun and like making fun of each other and like, having lighthearted fun. Like Jeremy's posting like on the catcher for free stay. If you didn't know, now you know, as he kicks like a routine pop fly to Ryan that can't get to the ball. Like that's what this entire league is like moving forward, in my opinion. It's like basis is like having fun. And that's how people have fun. And so I have no qualms with it. And I don't agree with like the fact that Jeff even like really kind of brought it up. And like I have to assume that the reason why he was flagged was because he was upset, because Aaron did call that out in real time. Like what happens, and you'll see this on the film, Aaron goes to the fence, like, so you can't see him, but you can hear him. He says, Seth. And he says, they're bringing out the board member who said, fuck no autographs. Like, I wonder how this decision's going to go for us. And that was heard by Jeff. And you can't exactly hear what Jeff says to him, but he calls out Aaron. And Aaron's like, dude, I'm just saying, you said fuck no autographs. Like, you said it. And he gets instructed to go to the dugout. And it's like, that's your decision, this, or the other. I do believe reprimand was tried to be or was brought down on Aaron for this. And it's like, dog, that's not something that like you can get in trouble for, with all due respect. And like Aaron did not partake in a single conversation with the refs, which is in my suspension letter. It was said that Aaron was like surrounding the refs and berating the refs, and that is just a completely infactual lie. And honestly, was like the real tipping point for why I moved forward. But it's like, I don't know. I don't like the fact that like that got addressed, because it's like now you like set a precedent. It's like we can't have fun anymore. Like I can't make fun, like, and like I didn't listen to last night's podcast. I'm not going to. But I don't know. I have to assume like now Jeff is going to be like super reserved, and it's like nobody wins in that situation. Like nobody wins, and it's like, he in his comment he says that multiple people said it. I asked, no one else said they said it besides Aaron. So I don't know where the truth is there. I'm not calling him a liar by any means, but like no one else said they said it. And so yeah, I don't know. I don't like where that's headed. But again, like I just think the board should have stuck with Jeff's decision. He came on the field and he made the decision. The board should, in my opinion, should come out and say, hey, Jeff came out and made this decision. His decision is wrong. This is like Sean 100% needed to kick and field if he was going to partake in the game. But it's like, to give us a forfeit for that, just like, I don't know, it seems weird. Like, I think the contextualization of the fact they were celebrating it, the fact they like addressed the board like we knew was like they're claiming like that. People told me that they're claiming that they let us score on purpose, which is like, Aaron went 6 for 6, bro. With all due respect, y'all wasn't getting him out. That boy fast as hell. And it's like, there was just no world we weren't going to walk that off the way we were going to walk it off. So it's like, to me, I would have just used all that context to be like, yep, like, we made a mistake. We want to clarify how the situation needs to be handled moving forward. But, like, the game result is the game result. And especially because, like, the scorebooking error, and, like, I feel like, I'm not going to say that, like, this is, like, a clear, open, and shut case of bias, but, like, every single scorebook error that's happened has been addressed. Last year, Max for Harpies messed up our scorebook. They gave us the additional run. Earlier this year, I think it was JB's that fucked up scorebook, and IFU was given out. Cougar fucked up the scorebook for a free state game a couple years ago. I believe he was told he could not ref scorebook again for the rest of the year. At least that's what he was telling people. So, I don't know. It's like, for me, I don't like how that came about, just because it's like, I think you just got to stick with your decision and be like, hey, our decision was wrong. But like the scorebook was fucked up. They technically should have won the game before the illegal run based off the runs that were awarded in the game. I don't know. And like that is kind of where our team is, like, that's kind of why we haven't said anything about this. If I'm being transparent, it's like, this game should have been like a nothing burger for like 49 different reasons. And the fact that it's like turned into what it has is like, to me, like a very clear and obvious, like, people don't like us, and so people want to get us in trouble or want to make something out of our actions that did not happen. I'm welcome to being wrong. I hope I'm wrong because I hate like assuming the worst in people. I hate like, you know, making assumptions. Like that's just not me. Not the way I am, and like I'm never gonna like just naturally assume the worst in people. But like that's my take, and like I don't think it's fair to like assume that we're all gonna like have faith in the board now because it's like, what am I supposed to do now when like for example, this upcoming week, like Derek is the commissioner of the league. His team is reffing my game, so I'll assume Derek's gonna ref, and it's like Derek makes a decision and says, "Oh, yep, nope, Sean's up to kick," but it's really Chance. And so like, Sean goes up and kicks, and it's like now you're gonna give us a forfeit because we listened to you. And so yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't think this situation is like other lineup errors. Like we had no qualms in it, in my opinion. And to me, this would actually make sense. In my opinion, the lineup submitted by a captain, they're responsible for. I am responsible for what I submitted to the KVKL refs at that game. That lineup was legal and followed every single rule. What happens from there, in my opinion, is actually not on the not on the team. And I know there's been a couple roster forfeits from this year and like illegal lineups, and my understanding is all that has come from captains, which makes sense to me. But like, I don't get how I'm being punished or my team is being punished, and punished is such a loose term, but it's like I don't get how we're facing a consequence for the scorebook and refs coming to a decision and like making their own adjustments and making their own like in-game decisions, because it's like I can't overrule that. Like, what am I supposed to do in the situation? What about this? Let's say like we end up playing that game out, and it's like it's Marcus / Sean's time to kick in the lineup, and I was like, hey, I got to send Sean out there. Like, nope, we've moved Sean to the bottom. And say, I didn't do shit. You moved Sean to the bottom. Well, so I don't have Sean kick there. Now I've had an illegal skipping of someone in the lineup, and I've illegally moved them in my lineup, and then I have them go kick in that spot. What's supposed to happen then? It's like I just that's where my problem comes with it, and the fact they wanted the forfeit also just like doesn't sit right with me. If I'm being honest, like, and the film will show this. Lou comes over at one point and he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, what are you guys discussing? And I tell him, he's like, oh, that's like a really interesting, situation. That it's like he's like, and he kind of agreed with us, like, yeah, like he does have to probably like field and kick, but it's like, yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, like a weird situation. And again, like I want the record show. We had Sean in the lineup before the game started, and so I don't know. It's weird. It's not the most open and strut, and I don't like how it was handled. But it is what it is. Like again, like the forfeit is gonna mean nothing if we beat Johnny's. And the forfeit hopefully will still mean nothing if we lose to Johnny's. Obviously, very possible game that we lose. Like Johnny's is a very good, very very good team. I'm excited to see how the game goes. We're excited to play them. Like in real reality, obviously, like 6 months ago, our team's goal was to beat Johnny's. Mind you, Johnny's standard has maybe dropped a little bit. But like the quality of the team is still there, and as I've said on this, and I've said before, we're gonna get every single team's A+ performance. That's the way it's gone. And if you look at, besides the Love Garden game, like you look at what these teams have done, hell, even the D-holes, like they played pretty well against us, all things considered. So yeah, that's my take on that. I am gonna take a quick break. I need to eat real quick, and then I'm gonna share some more thoughts. All right. So lastly, I'll say this. I'm not going to be posting this in the KVKL Facebook group because I don't expect any world that a board member approves my post. I think I want to say again, I think it's important that our side of the story got told. Everyone will believe what they want to believe, which is perfectly fine. But like that's a lot of the reason why I took the steps I took to defend myself and defend our team and kind of stand up for the truth is because when people believe lies and people believe things that didn't happen or aren't the truth, that's when you start to run into situations of like people like getting in trouble, which is kind of what happened to me for like things they didn't do or like based off reputation. And like people have their opinions about me, people have their opinions about our team, but like the truth is, and this is nothing short of factual, is that I was suspended 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now, 5 years ago, for an action that I accepted that punishment in real time. I could, publish my receipts. I talked to Ben Hutnick when he was on the board at the time. I gave him my side of the story, and I was like, he's like, hey, I just think they're gonna come for you, and they're gonna suspend you, man. Like, it is what it is. And I was like, I accept it. I was like, if if her perception of what I did is this, or like people's perception is this, then that's fine. But it's like literally, I think it was 2 years later, the exact same thing happens on camera, recorded by an older person than I to a younger person than the person I did it to. And everybody under the sun rationalizes their excuse for why it's okay that he did that or why he did that and this or the other. And I just say all this to say I think people need to throw their biases out the window. And again, like, you can dislike someone. I'm perfectly fine. My life's gonna keep moving forward the same way if everyone hates me or if everyone likes me. I don't particularly care. But like, I don't know, man. I really hope that this situation, now we're like 9-10 days removed from it. Hopefully people can just take a step back. And then hopefully, for those of you that do want to dive into the 2.5 hours of tape, like, you can deduct your own truths. But I don't know. I think this is an eye-opening situation for everybody. I think this is an opportunity to learn and grow for everybody. And I hope everybody takes that opportunity. I do want to say, credit to the board. I believe Brant was the one who I assume he's like our handler or something, even though he's not like our assigned board member, because he's the one who replied to my email. And I think a couple other people on our team sent emails after hearing that like people were sending emails about us. And I believe he's the one that responded to all of them. But like Brant, offered, after this situation has passed, which it has now, for us and the board or whatever, to kind of have some sort of conversation to figure out why we think the board is against us. And try and remedy that moving forward. I'm hopeful that was a truthful statement and not them like doing a PR move. So hopefully something like that can come about and can happen. Because again, like, I think the past, 48 hours have been like a holy shit, this is real life moment for a lot of people, myself included. And I think that people, volunteers or not, can always learn from something. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I hope the board is serious about that. I think, a world where the board didn't see us as the enemies of the state and like saw us as a team that they should appreciate would be cool. Because again, I think we'll have all the truth we need here in a couple weeks. We'll see what game of the week attendance looks like for these next 2 games, because we got some big games coming up. But the also truth is that, like, bro, biggest game of the week of the year was our team. Like, that's, some of that comes with the haters, and the people will make their comments and say the other, and like you're gonna have a little bit more of an intense atmosphere and stuff. But it's like that's the stuff that's gonna grow this league. I promise you that. It ain't gonna be your TikTok trend Instagram reels that get 25 likes. Like, the real reality is like you gotta put on a show. And I'll give credit to KVKL. I'm pretty hard on like how they run it and stuff like that, but they do a better job than other kickball leagues out there, man. I'll tell you, fucking Turf War is the dumbest league out there. I'll say this: Turf Wars will let you play on 2 teams at once. And so we had that happen this past weekend, which is kind of eye opening. About how bad some of this shit is, and how bad some people are running kickball leagues. But yeah, it's this is all very good. Now that we're moving on, again, this is gonna be our last comments about the situation. Don't come up to me asking about it. I'm not gonna talk to you about it. I've moved on. We just hope to move forward with no bias. We hope to move forward with no punishments towards anyone on our team. We hope to move forward with people, just treating us the way that we deserve to be treated, which is like human beings. And it's like, and if you choose to like not like us and this or the other, like that's fine. But like, don't come up acting buddy to us. Don't ask us to, buy your charity auction items. Like, don't come, listen to the Pirate Pod, ask me when the next Pirate Pod is, and then talk shit on us behind our back. Like, I'll say my shit here. I'll say my shit to your face. If I think I'm better than you at kickball, I'm gonna tell you that. And it's like, if you decide to like get personal on that, man, that's on you. And like, I think a lot of people just got to remove that personal bias. Remind, like, we're playing kickball. Let the best teams win. And as they try to say, the most fun win. And as I said, I'll die on this hill. Dover, much less backhandedly than Erie, called out what a pleasure our team was to play. And I appreciate Dover for calling that. And sure, I'm sure other teams have something to say about, us not being great to play, but it's like, dude, like, the film don't lie. And it's like, I'll say this. It's a lot less fun to play a team when you're losing. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. And yeah, sure, it might be more fun to lose to Johnnies because they aren't going to respond, to your little chirps and your little hissy fits like we will. But it's like, don't get mad when your energy gets matched, man. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody for listening. Hopefully, this doesn't ruffle too many feathers. In my opinion, I think this is a very good, airing out of the situation. I think obviously, like I think the board's not going to say a single thing. I think obviously a lot of people are hitting them up, I'm sure, to get takes and statements and stuff. So hopefully this does a decent job of like representing what happened. Again, for those who weren't able to deduct anything, we're moving on, and we are putting that week behind us. And our focus now is Johnny's and the rest of the season. Rat poison has got to go. Cannot let that shit infect our team and what we're focused on. So appreciate everybody for listening. And don't hit me up if you have questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.